Ever felt like God abandoned you? Paul could have easily felt that during the events of these last few chapters. Acts 25 is a chapter that needs a little bit of context. So if you've missed the last couple of days, let me kind of catch you up to speed, starting all the way back in chapter 21. So during Paul's third missionary journey, he feels compelled to go to Jerusalem. And even being warned by a prophet not to come, he still feels this impression to come. And after meeting with the leaders of the church there in Jerusalem, he's met by an angry mob who's trying to kill Paul. He is eventually saved by this Roman commander who stops the beating and works to uncover what is going on. The religious leaders, they throw all kinds of accusations at Paul and eventually devise a plot to kill Paul. But upon learning of this plot, this Roman commander actually takes him to Caesarea to stand trial before Felix, the governor. So the religious leaders again throw these accusations at Paul, but the information is insufficient to render a verdict. Still, Felix is working to maintain a good relationship with the Jewish leaders and refuses to render a judgment. And so it's during a succession of leadership that Felix actually leaves Paul in prison for 2 years. And so this chapter begins with a new governor beginning his rule, and he visits the Jerusalem leaders. Right there, those Jewish leaders that are in Jerusalem, working to establish a good relationship with those he is governing. So in the process, Paul's case comes up as they try again to manipulate the situation and have Paul killed for preaching the gospel. So throughout the chapter, we see almost the same sequence of events as the previous chapter. Still, during Paul's denial of the accusations, he invokes his right as a Roman citizen to hear his case before Caesar. Very similar to our right to hear our case before the Supreme Courts. It's thus bringing Paul's eventual journey to Rome, which goes through King Agrippa. The key thing that we see out of this chapter is to look at the opportunities that Paul is given to advance the gospel during the season of waiting. So how many of us are given the chance to be in the presence of high-ranking political leaders? Well, Paul is, and each time is given an opportunity to share about Jesus, and he does it with boldness. It could easily be seen that his time was wasted, but I see this set back as God set up for what he's doing through Paul. So today, let's look at a couple of applications to this chapter, really in our own life. So first question is, what do we do in our waiting? So Paul has to wait for 2 years to be tried, not to mention the additional days and weeks it takes to accommodate the process that's described in this chapter. Do you ever get frustrated with God when delays happen? I know I'm not always known for my patience, but we see a couple of great principles in the life of Paul here. Even in the delay, he makes the most of every circumstance. When he's given a chance to share about Jesus, he does so, and he swings for the fences with these governors and these kings. The delay may be part of the setup for God to accomplish big things. So continue to be patient in your waiting and trust that God is in control. Waiting can be a time of tremendous growth and preparation where we learn to trust in God's timing and develop patience and perseverance. As we wait, we can use this time to deepen our relationship with God and prepare ourselves for the next season of life, and in Paul's case, ministry. I noticed that Paul is always ready, even after these long delays, to share about Jesus. So let us be reminded to stay ready in our waiting. Second thing is, don't let our anger take us to a dark or obsessive place. This chapter and story are scary when looking at what these religious leaders are willing to do when their anger creeps up. 40 of them made a vow in a previous chapter not to eat or drink until Paul is dead. And once again, they're working on a scheme to kill a man. I pray that in our anger that we never get blinded. These individuals lost all self-control, and it took them to unhealthy places. So if you notice yourself getting there, stop and evaluate the circumstance. Anger can take you to a place that you never thought that you would go. Ephesians 4:26-27. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger and give the opportunity to the devil. So what to do when we are accused? It's the third thing that we see out of this. So Paul was not guilty of any of these things. They were accusing him of. And we don't see him attack back, but instead continue to be and do what God has called him to be and do. So often accusations can distract us from what God is calling and asking us to do. But Paul remains focused and even uses it to help fulfill his message and to take that with him to Rome and encourage the church there. Remember, the next time that you're accused, don't stoop to their level and continue to do what God has called you to do, knowing that your life will speak for itself. Acts 25:7 says, speaks so well of Paul that they actually brought many charges against him that they could not prove. I encourage you to keep living your life so that people have no evidence of the case against you. And we see in several places, Paul uses the phrase above reproach. And the reason why Paul can say that is because he has lived his life that way, and you can too. I want to encourage you, if you're in a season of waiting, don't miss out on the opportunities that God has in front of you. Maybe this is a season of anger. Be careful what you allow to creep into your life. And then finally, let's keep our life above reproach. So no matter what accusation comes, nothing sticks, just like Paul.